All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. In this one, I wanted to ask the question, who do you think the Jets should start at the center position? Now, of course, it is a little difficult to kind of think about Tippmann. Why? Because we just haven't seen him play, right? We haven't even seen a single preseason snap, a single training camp play, just because it hasn't happened yet. But everything that we do know about Tippmann, right? The Wisconsin film, how the Jets view him, right? To take a guy like that in the second round, really his overall projection as a prospect, how a lot of teams felt about him, how a lot of draft insiders felt about him, and also, something that we're going to get into in just a second, how he stacks up against some of the other top centers that we've seen come out in recent years, right? And how have those guys performed at the NFL level. So I think right off the bat, the good news, whether you want McGovern, whether you want Tippmann to be the starter, this is a good problem to have. It's not like the Jets are deciding between, for lack of a better term, the lesser of two evils, right? We're not talking about two bad football players. We're really deciding between two solid options, two guys that, look, if news breaks towards the, midway point of training camp, McGovern's the guy, or vice versa, Joe Tippmann is going to be the team starting center. It's like, great, this is awesome. The team is making the best decision for wins. They're putting the best available players out on the football field. We're talking about the first or second ranked center in this past class and the Jets starting center for the past couple of seasons who's been able to put out solid play. So let's talk about McGovern first. And really, with both of these players, there's going to be a list of positives, right? Different positives that each player brings to the table. Number one, with McGovern, we just talked about it, right? We've seen him play. We've seen Connor McGovern put out solid, consistent football. Last year with the Jets offensive line, I mean, I don't want to continue to rehash these bad memories, right? These nightmare games, these nightmare moments. But we had tons of injuries all over the place. Becton missed the entire season. Max Mitchell dealt with the blood clots. Dwayne Brown had the injury. AVT was out for got hurt in the early portion of the season, out for the remainder of the season. Laken Tomlinson brought him in on a humongous contract given his position. Didn't live up to it in his first season. I mean, all of a sudden we're looking at this offensive line and it's like, man, what more could go wrong? But luckily, Connor McGovern was, in my opinion, solid. I'm not saying he was a top 5 setter in football or anything like that, but he definitely was not bad. He was not the Achilles heel. I felt like in a season with a lot of turmoil, a lot of question marks, a lot of rotating guys in, rotating guys out due to various reasons, McGovern was always the safe bet. Like, okay, you know what? At least with center, we know what we're going to get. It's not going to be fantastic center play, but at least we know, at least we have some closure here on what we're getting. And as we all know, this season is completely different from years past. We're not this young developing team. We're not just shooting to take, one step forward. Hey, we got, whatever it was, 4 wins the first year with Salah, next season 7. This year we're hoping for 8-9. Maybe we can get into the playoffs. No, with the Aaron Rodgers acquisition, with all of these moves that Joe Douglas has made, not only just this offseason, but in years prior, just stacked on top of each other. I mean, we're thinking multiple playoff wins, a deep playoff push, AFC Championship, Super Bowl, right? We have our sights set high with this football team. So if the offensive staff here, right, Hackett, Todd Downing, Keith Carter, if they feel as an offensive staff that there might be some rookie mistakes with Tippmann, it's completely normal. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But again, as an offensive staff, if there is that thought, like, hey, McGovern might be the more safe option, they might be similar players, we might be splitting hairs and trying to decide who should be the starter. But if the offensive staff feels like, you know what, there might be that learning curve, there might be some rookie mistakes along the way, and because Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback of the team, and this is a guy who, puts so much value into the pre-snap portion of the game, trying to catch the defense offsides, trying to catch them with 12 men on the field, as guys are substituting in and out, somebody who really tries to establish the cadence early on. If the offensive staff thinks McGovern might be the more safe bet in that regard. Like, we don't have to worry about the mistakes popping up from time to time. We don't have to worry about it as much. I could see them maybe favoring McGovern in that area. Also factoring in, the Jets are in Dallas this season, in Buffalo, in New England, in Miami, in Denver, in Cleveland, right? The AFC is stacked this season, and these places are going to be packed. When the Jets come to town, these are big AFC matchups here. Obviously not including the Dallas Cowboys, but still a tough place to play. These are big games. The fans are going to show out. They're going to be hectic environments. This is something that McGovern has seen before, whereas Tippmann, it's just been at the college level. So there are positive arguments that you can make for Connor being the starter, and also the added benefit, if Tippmann has some time on the bench, that's not going to, in my opinion, hurt him as an NFL pro. It will probably only help him in the long term. And the last point that I do want to bring up for McGovern here, in favor of him starting, is the fact that he's played with this offensive line before. Having overall continuity on the offensive line is huge. He's played with AVT. He's played with Lakin right next to him, right? He knows what this offense is supposed to look like. He knows where to be. He knows what it's like to play with these guys, knows their tendencies. That shouldn't go under the radar. It should not be swept under the rug. Now, it's not to say that Tippmann is just, oblivious here and can't pick it up. It's impossible for him to do that. Obviously not. But at the same time, at least Connor has that on his resume. Hey, I've played with these guys. I've started a lot of games for the Jets in these past couple of seasons. I know exactly what you want from me, and I know the players around me. Now, if we flip it and look at it from Tippmann's perspective, right, I think he has a lot going for him as well. I think the first thing that jumps out, he was a highly rated center prospect. If he wasn't the number one center in the, on a lot of people's boards, he was number 2 behind John Michael Schmitz. But it was really a back and forth, just kind of personal preference. We look at some of these centers graded in the same ballpark as Tippmann, maybe a little bit better, a little bit worse, in the past handful of seasons. I mean, we had Tyler Linderbaum in 2022, absolute slam dunk with Baltimore. We had Creed Humphrey, obviously picked by the Kansas City Chiefs in 2021, Garrett Bradbury by the Vikings, Frank Ragnow, Detroit Lions 2018, former first-round pick, Eric McCoy in 2019, second-round pick by the Saints. These guys, and I guess you could maybe say Bradbury hasn't lived up to being like that first-round pick, but he's still a consistent starter. He's still a good player, in my opinion. You look at all of those players, these guys aren't holding the offensive lines back, right? We're not hitting the offseason, and Baltimore is scratching their head looking at their roster saying, man, we have to upgrade from Linderbaum. This guy, he's horrible. The Lions aren't saying we have to upgrade from Ragnow immediately. He's holding the team back. Not in the least, right? And it's not to say that Tippmann is exactly going to be, one of the top centers in football. Of course, we have to see him play and, see how he progresses with the team. Not every, it's not Madden with just, ratings overall. But again, looking at the track record here, looking at the resume, what Tippmann has done at Wisconsin, understanding how he's graded amongst the past centers that we've seen in the last, handful of seasons, since 2018, 2019, I feel pretty confident in Joe Douglas going out and selecting Tippmann when center wasn't really the biggest position of need at that point in time. Obviously, we re-signed McGovern on that cheap 1-year contract. It wasn't like a do or die pick. Like, hey, we have nobody on the roster. Let's just hit the position of need at center. Just take the best one there. It was, in my opinion, pretty strategic. I don't think Douglas is doing that. I don't think Douglas is going to reach on a center prospect when we already have one in-house that's good enough to play and start, again, in my opinion, at a formidable level. So I think there's a high level of excitement in the building for Tippmann, what he can be at the NFL level. And, I hope this doesn't come off as like the optimistic the optimistic Jet fan here, but I really believe that Joe Tippmann can be the team's anchor in the middle of the offensive line for years on end. You're like, he could be the long-term solution here. 5, 6, 7+ years. He was considered by many people out there as a high floor type of prospect, but also still has room to grow. He's not really looked at as some boom or bust guy. Man, he's either going to be fantastic or he's going to be horrible and out of the league. It's like we have a pretty solid understanding that he could at least be a starter in time, like a good high-end starter eventually. We're also looking at the scheme fit, right? Is Tippmann coming into a system that builds off of his skill set? Are they compatible? And the answer is yes. Does Tippmann move well in space? Yes. Does he get to the second level well? Yes. So I like the foundation, right? There's a foundation in place. There's a good ecosystem, if you will, in place that's going to allow Tippmann to flourish. Again, he has a lot of things going for him just individually as a prospect, but then when you pair that with what the organization can give Tippmann with the scheme fit and, some of the talent around him, assuming Lakin looks better this season, this go round with the Jets and Nathaniel Hackett, as opposed to last season working with LaFleur and AVT coming back. Hopefully we have some more depth at tackle and, obviously working with Aaron Rodgers as opposed to what we had last season. Again, optimistic mindset, less turnovers, less punts, more points, more sustained drives. I think this could be an awesome marriage here between Joe Tippmann and the Jets. Hopefully, it's a long-term thing as well. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Who do you think is going to be the team starting center? Who do you want to be the team starting center? It should be really, really interesting because, again, I feel like there's not really a right or wrong answer here. If you prefer Tippmann over McGovern, it's not some outlandish thing. If you prefer McGovern over Tippmann, it's like, okay, yeah, you have a long list of valid points, valid arguments. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.